if the legendary Yenko Camaro from Too Fast, Too Furious was never actually a real Yenko? What if the most iconic muscle car in the entire franchise was built on lies, hiding secrets that would enrage Don Yenko's family? This orange beast wasn't a genuine supercar. It was a Hollywood fake that fooled millions, cost a fortune to build, and nearly destroyed the film before audiences ever saw it. Number 20. The movie car was not a real Yenko Camaro. Let's start with the truth that will shock every Too Fast, Too Furious fan. The orange Yenko Camaro driven by Paul Walker was not an authentic 1969 Yenko supercar. It was a standard 1969 Chevrolet Camaro SS that the production modified to look like a Yenko. Real Yenko Camaros are extraordinarily rare. Don Yenko's dealership in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, only converted 201 Camaros in 1969 by installing Chevrolet's legendary 427 cubic inch V8 engines. These vehicles are worth over $500,000 today in pristine condition. The production couldn't afford to destroy a genuine Yenko during action sequences, and finding multiple examples for filming would have been impossible. So they took a regular Camaro SS with the 350 cubic inch small block engine and dressed it up with Yenko, badges, stripes, and graphics. Here's the deceptive part. The movie never explicitly states it's a real Yenko. The characters just call it a Yenko, and audiences assumed authenticity. The Yenko family was reportedly furious when they discovered Hollywood had essentially created counterfeit versions of their grandfather's legendary muscle cars. But by then, the movie had made $236 million worldwide, and the fake Yenko had become a cultural icon. Number 19. 6 different Camaros were used, and 5 were completely destroyed.
It's called a cable-off type of a gag where we towed the car into the ramp to get the speed we needed.
The production built 6 separate orange Camaros to portray Brian's Yenko throughout filming. Each vehicle served specific purposes and met different fates. The hero car was used for close-ups, dialogue scenes, and beauty shots where the vehicle needed to look perfect. 2 stunt cars were reinforced for jumps, crashes, and high-speed sequences. One was a stripped-down shell used exclusively for interior camera work with no drivetrain. Another was the effects car rigged with hydraulics and special equipment for specific shots. The 6th was a backup kept in reserve. Here's the brutal reality. 5 of these 6 Camaros were completely destroyed during production. The pink slip race sequence alone demolished 2 vehicles. The scramble scene at the impound lot wrecked another. High-speed highway filming destroyed a 4th when it clipped a camera vehicle and spun into a barrier at 70 miles per hour. The effects car was intentionally cut apart for mounting camera equipment and could never be restored. Only the hero car survived intact. That single remaining Camaro was later sold at auction for $185,000. The production spent approximately $240,000 building and destroying 6 fake Yenkos to create the illusion of one indestructible muscle car. Number 18. The orange paint was custom mixed and required 14 coats.
Too fast for y'all, man. Drop. Too fast. Drop. Too furious. I'm too fast for y'all, man. Drop. Too fast. Drop.
That stunning Hugger orange paint scheme wasn't factory Chevrolet orange. It was a custom color specifically formulated for the movie to look spectacular on camera under Florida's intense sunlight. The production's paint specialist mixed dozens of samples before achieving the perfect shade that would pop visually while maintaining muscle car authenticity. The final formula combined base orange with additional metallic flakes, pearl additives, and custom pigments that cost $300 per gallon. But achieving that mirror-like finish required an insane 14 coats of paint per vehicle. Each Camaro received multiple primer coats, 6 base color coats, 4 clear coats, and extensive wet sanding between applications. The complete paint process took 3 weeks per car and cost approximately $18,000 per vehicle. That's over $100,000 spent just on orange paint across all 6 Camaros. Here's the technical challenge. Florida's humidity and salt air caused paint adhesion problems. The first test vehicle's paint began lifting and peeling after just 2 days of location shooting near the ocean. The paint formula had to be completely reformulated with additional hardeners and UV protectants. Even with these improvements, the paint required constant maintenance. Detailers polished and touched up the hero car daily to maintain its showroom appearance throughout the 3-month filming schedule. Number 17, the engine was swapped 3 times because none could handle the stunts.
Hold on, Rob. Hold on.
Production started with the Camaro's original 350 cubic inch small block V8 engine. But that motor couldn't deliver the performance needed for the aggressive racing sequences. Director John Singleton wanted genuine tire smoking acceleration, not CGI fakery. The problem was the stock engine produced only 295 horsepower, which looked anemic on camera compared to the other modified cars in the film. After 2 weeks of disappointing footage, the production swapped in a built 406 cubic inch stroker motor, producing 450 horsepower. That lasted exactly 11 days before the engine grenaded during a burnout scene, scattering metal fragments across the parking lot. Nobody was injured, but the explosion cost $32,000 in replacement parts and lost filming time. The third engine was a bulletproof 527 cubic inch big block producing over 600 horsepower. This monster motor finally delivered the performance cinematographers needed, but it created new problems. The massive engine weight destroyed the front suspension's handling balance. The car pushed terribly in corners and required constant steering corrections. The fuel system couldn't keep up with the engine's appetite, causing the Camaro to run lean and nearly catch fire twice during extended high RPM scenes. Number 16. Paul Walker crashed the Hero. Car and production shut down for 5 days.
Man, that's a fue bueno.
How about them apples, man?
Good job, man.
How does that dust taste?
Paul Walker was an experienced driver who performed many of his own stunts throughout the Fast franchise. But during the 4th week of filming, he made a critical mistake that nearly derailed production. The script called for Brian to powerslide the Yenko through a sweeping corner at approximately 45 miles per hour. Walker initiated the drift perfectly, but the rear tires suddenly lost traction on an oil patch that nobody had noticed. The Camaro spun violently and slammed passenger side first into a concrete barrier. Walker escaped without injury thanks to the roll cage and safety equipment, but the Hero car was catastrophically damaged. The entire passenger side bodywork was crushed, the suspension was destroyed, and the frame showed stress cracks. Insurance adjusters initially declared the vehicle a total loss. Production faced a genuine crisis because they'd already destroyed most of the backup Camaros and couldn't afford delays while building a replacement Hero car. The solution cost $95,000 and required 5 days of round-the-clock work. A body shop crew of 12 worked in shifts, straightening the frame, replacing body panels, repairing suspension components, and repainting the damaged side. Walker felt terrible about the accident and personally apologized to director John Singleton and the entire crew. Number 15. The wheelie bars were added for one scene and never removed. If you look carefully at the Yenko Camaro throughout Too Fast, Too Furious, you'll notice something weird. The car has wheelie bars extending from the rear axle in some scenes, but not others. This wasn't a continuity error. It was a production decision that created unintended consequences. The pink slip race sequence required the Camaro to launch so aggressively that the front wheels lifted off the ground. To achieve this safely, the stunt coordinator insisted on installing professional drag racing wheelie bars. These chrome bars prevented the car from flipping backward during extreme acceleration. The wheelie bars cost $4,000 and took 8 hours to fabricate and install. Here's where things went wrong. After filming the race scene, the crew was supposed to remove the wheelie bars to restore the car's street appearance. But the installation had been so permanent, involving welding and frame modification, that removal would have taken 2 days and potentially damaged the paint. The production was already behind schedule, so they made a pragmatic decision. Leave the wheelie bars on permanently. This meant the Hero car looked like a drag racer for the entire rest of the movie, even during scenes where it made no sense for Brian's street car to have competition equipment. Number 14. The nitrous oxide system was real, but illegally oversized for Florida laws. The Yenko Camaro featured a functional nitrous oxide injection system that wasn't just movie magic. The production installed genuine NOS brand equipment, including twin 15-pound bottles, solenoids, jets, and all necessary plumbing. The system was capable of delivering a 250 horsepower shot directly into the engine. This wasn't for show. The cinematographers needed real performance for racing sequences, and Nitrous provided instant dramatic acceleration that cameras could capture authentically. But here's the legal problem. Florida law strictly prohibited nitrous systems of this capacity on vehicles registered for street use. The bottles exceeded legal size limits, and the delivery system lacked required safety certifications. The production obtained special permits for filming, but those permits only covered closed sets. Anytime the Camaro drove on public roads between locations, it was technically illegal. The nitrous bottles had to be removed, transported separately, and reinstalled at each new filming location. This process added 90 minutes to every move day. During one transport, police stopped the truck carrying the nitrous bottles and detained the driver for 3 hours while investigating whether the equipment violated explosives transportation regulations. The incident cost the production half a day of filming and required lawyers to straighten out the misunderstanding with law enforcement. Number 13, the Cobra bucket seats cost more than the entire base Camaro. The original 1969 Camaro bench seat was completely removed and replaced with modern Recaro racing seats wrapped in custom orange leather. These weren't ordinary aftermarket seats. The production used top-of-the-line Recaro Profi SPG seats designed for professional motorsports. Each seat cost $7,500, meaning the pair totaled $15,000 just for somewhere to sit. Here's the absurd part. The production paid only $12,000 for the base Camaro they started with before modifications. The seats literally cost more than the entire donor vehicle, but the expense was justified for safety and aesthetics. The Recaro seats provided proper 5-point harness mounting, superior lateral support during aggressive driving, and they looked absolutely spectacular on camera with their orange stitching matching the exterior paint. The installation required custom fabrication because 1969 Camaro floor pans weren't designed for modern racing seats. A metal shop built custom seat mounts that welded directly to the frame, ensuring the seats wouldn't break loose during crashes. The seat installation added another $5,000 to each vehicle's build cost. 6 Camaros times $20,000 in seats, and mounting equals $120,000 spent on racing seats alone. That's enough money to buy 2 additional donor Camaros and still have cash left over. Number 12, the supercharger whine was added in post-production because the car had none. Every Fast and Furious fan recognizes that distinctive high-pitched supercharger whine that accompanies the Yenko Camaro's acceleration. It's become an iconic part of the car's character. But here's the truth. The actual Camaros used in filming had naturally aspirated engines with no superchargers whatsoever. That whine was completely fabricated by sound designers in post-production. The production's 527 cubic inch big block engine produced impressive naturally aspirated power, but the sound wasn't dramatic enough for theatrical release. Audiences expect exaggerated automotive sounds in action movies, so the audio team recorded genuine supercharger whine from a different vehicle entirely, then layered it over every scene featuring the Camaro. They used recordings from a blown big block Chevrolet running a massive Roots-style supercharger. The whine was then pitch-shifted and timed to match the on-screen action. Here's why this matters. Thousands of car enthusiasts spent years arguing online about what supercharger was installed on the movie Camaro, debating brands and pulley ratios. The arguments were completely pointless because no supercharger ever existed. The deception was so convincing that aftermarket companies built tribute Camaros with actual superchargers, trying to recreate the movie car's sound, not realizing they were chasing audio that was digitally created in a Hollywood sound studio. Number 11. The racing stripes were vinyl that melted under Florida heat 17 times. Those iconic white racing stripes running over the Yenko's orange body weren't painted on like authentic 1969 Camaros. They were modern vinyl decals applied by a professional graphics company. The production chose vinyl because it allowed quick repairs and replacements if the stripes were damaged during stunts. This decision created an unexpected nightmare. Florida's combination of intense sunlight and extreme humidity caused the vinyl adhesive to fail catastrophically. The stripes began bubbling, peeling, and literally melting off the cars during the very first week of filming. Production assistants discovered sections of white vinyl curled up on parking lot pavement after vehicles sat in the sun for just 3 hours. The graphics company had used adhesive rated for normal conditions, not the brutal punishment of all-day movie production in 95-degree heat. The stripes had to be completely removed and reapplied 17 times across all 6 vehicles during the 3-month shoot. Each complete stripe job cost $2,800 and required the car to be down for 6 hours while new vinyl cured. That's $47,600 spent repeatedly applying the same stripes. By the final week of filming, detailers were carrying heat guns and spare vinyl to make emergency repairs between takes because the stripes wouldn't stay attached for more than a few hours. Number 10. The roll cage installation violated period accuracy and safety regulations simultaneously. Every stunt vehicle requires a roll cage for actor safety and insurance compliance. The production welded full chromoly steel cages into all 6 Camaros at a cost of $8,500 each. But these weren't period-correct 1969-style cages. They were modern, multi-point racing cages that looked completely anachronistic inside a classic muscle car. Sharp-eyed enthusiasts immediately noticed the discrepancy. Authentic 1969 race Camaros used simple 4-point roll bars, not the elaborate door bars and diagonal supports visible in the film. Here's where it gets worse. Despite being modern cages, they somehow failed to meet current NHRA safety specifications. The cage builder used incorrect tubing diameter in several locations and positioned door bars at angles that wouldn't protect occupants during side impacts. When the insurance company's safety inspector examined the cages before approving stunt work, he rejected 3 of the 6 vehicles as inadequate. Production had already spent $51,000 on cages that were both historically wrong and mechanically insufficient. The solution required cutting out sections and rewelding with proper materials, adding another $24,000 to the build costs. The final cages were engineering nightmares that pleased neither purists who wanted accuracy nor safety experts who wanted proper protection. They were expensive compromises that satisfied only the insurance company's minimum requirements. Number 9. Tyrese Gibson couldn't drive manual and required a secret automatic transmission. The script called for Roman Pierce to drive Brian's Yenko Camaro during several crucial scenes, but Tyrese Gibson had a significant problem. He'd never learned to operate a manual transmission, and the Hero Camaro had a 4-speed stick shift. Production discovered this issue 3 days before filming Roman's first driving sequence. Teaching Tyrese to drive stick would take weeks he didn't have. The solution was both clever and expensive. A transmission shop removed the 4-speed manual from one of the backup Camaros and installed a GM Turbo 400 automatic transmission. The swap cost $12,000, including a custom torque converter and modified shifter that looks similar to the manual. Here's the deceptive part. The automatic-equipped Camaro retained a fake manual shifter boot and knob for continuity. When Tyrese's scenes required close-ups of shifting, the production used the real manual transmission car with a hand double performing the gear changes. Wide shots used the automatic Camaro that Tyrese could actually drive. This dual transmission deception created constant continuity headaches. Script supervisors had to meticulously track which transmission was in which shot to avoid visible discrepancies. The automatic Camaro also sounded completely different than the manual, requiring extensive audio replacement in post-production to maintain consistency. Number 8. The brake system failed during a stunt and nearly killed the camera crew. The massive 527 cubic inch engine gave the Yenko incredible acceleration, but stopping that much power required serious brake upgrades. The production installed modern bare 6-piston calipers with 14-inch rotors at all 4 corners. These brakes cost $11,000 per vehicle and were supposedly capable of stopping anything, but nobody accounted for brake fade during repeated high-speed takes. The pink slip race sequence required the stunt driver to accelerate to 90 miles per hour and brake hard for the finish line. After 7 consecutive takes without allowing the brakes to cool, the brake fluid began boiling inside the lines. On take 8, the driver stomped the pedal and got nothing. The pedal went straight to the floor with 0 resistance. The Camaro plowed through the finish line at 70 miles per hour, heading directly toward the camera crew. The crew scattered as the car smashed through equipment cases and finally stopped after hitting a production van. 3 crew members suffered minor injuries diving out of the way. The impact caused $48,000 in equipment damage. Investigation revealed that the brake fluid wasn't rated for racing temperatures. The production immediately upgraded to high-temperature racing fluid in all vehicles and implemented mandatory 30-minute cooling periods between aggressive braking sequences. Number 7. The custom hood was fiberglass that cracked and required replacement every 2 weeks. The Yenko Camaro's aggressive hood with functional ram air scoop wasn't steel like the original 1969 hood. It was custom fiberglass fabricated specifically for the movie. The production wanted a more dramatic cowl induction-style hood that would look intimidating on camera. A California company molded 6 custom hoods at $3,200 each. Fiberglass was chosen because it was lighter than steel and easier to modify for camera mounting equipment. This decision proved disastrous. Fiberglass has no flex tolerance. Every vibration from the big block engine, every bump in the road, and every hard acceleration created stress fractures in the hood structure. The first hood developed visible cracks after just 9 days of filming. By week 3, cracks had spread so extensively that pieces of fiberglass were literally falling off during driving scenes. The production had to replace hoods every 2 weeks throughout the entire shoot. They went through 11 hoods total across all the vehicles. That's $35,200 spent on hoods alone. Each replacement required 8 hours of work removing the old hood, fitting the new one, painting it to match, and reinstalling graphics. The fiberglass also absorbed heat from the engine, causing the paint to discolor and requiring constant touch-ups. A steel hood would have cost less and lasted the entire production. Number 6. The production destroyed 147 tires in 3 months. The Yenko Camaro sat on massive Mickey Thompson drag radials measuring 315 millimeters wide at the rear. These competition tires cost $485 each and were designed for maximum traction during drag racing. They were not designed for the punishment of Hollywood stunt work. Every burnout scene required fresh tires because the smoking rubber you see on screen literally destroys the tire's internal structure. The production shot 43 separate burnout takes across all 6 vehicles. Each burnout consumed at least 1 set of rear tires. But the tire destruction didn't stop with intentional burnouts. High-speed cornering, hard launches, and aggressive driving wore through tire compounds at an alarming rate. A single day of racing sequences could destroy 2 complete sets of tires on 1 car. The production kept a mobile tire service on location full-time, just mounting fresh rubber between takes. Over 3 months of filming, the production consumed 147 individual tires across all 6 Camaros. At $485 per tire, that's $71,295 spent on rubber alone. That doesn't include mounting and balancing costs, which added another $8,000. The tire bill exceeded the cost of the donor vehicles by a factor of 6. Number 5. The fuel cell installation violated DOT regulations and cost $40,000 in fines. Professional race cars use fuel cells instead of stock gas tanks for safety. Fuel cells contain internal bladders and foam baffles that prevent explosions during crashes. The production installed racing fuel cells in all 6 Camaros, replacing the factory gas tanks. These ATL Motorsports fuel cells cost $2,800 each and held 22 gallons. The installation seemed smart until Florida Highway Patrol stopped one of the transportation trucks moving vehicles between locations. The officer noticed fuel fumes and investigated. He discovered that the fuel cells violated multiple Department of Transportation regulations. The cells lacked proper venting systems required for public roads. The mounting brackets didn't meet crash safety standards for street vehicles. The fuel lines used racing spec fittings that weren't DOT approved. The production was hit with 8 separate citations, totaling $40,000 in fines. Here's the bigger problem. The vehicles couldn't legally drive on public roads until the fuel systems were brought into compliance. This meant every location move required flatbed transport instead of simply driving the cars. The additional transportation costs exceeded $115,000 over the remaining 2 months of filming. The production ultimately paid more in fines and extra transport than the fuel cells originally cost. Number 4. The rear differential exploded 3 times from nitrous shock loads. The 1969 Camaro's factory rear differential was a GM12 bolt unit designed for moderate performance. It could handle the original engine's torque without problems, but the combination of a 600 horsepower big block and 250 horsepower nitrous shots created forces that exceeded the differential's engineering limits by enormous margins. When the stunt driver hit the nitrous button during hard acceleration, over 850 horsepower slammed into gears designed for 300 horsepower maximum. The first differential explosion occurred during the scramble scene. The driver launched hard with nitrous activated, and the ring gear literally shattered inside the housing. Metal fragments shot through the differential cover and scattered across the pavement. The car was immobilized instantly. The second explosion happened during the highway race sequence. Same scenario, different car. The third explosion occurred during reshoots 2 weeks before production wrapped. Each failure required replacing the entire differential assembly at a cost of $4,700 plus installation. The solution was upgrading all remaining vehicles to strange engineering 9-inch Ford differentials with billet steel internals capable of handling 2,000 horsepower. These bulletproof differentials cost $8,500 each installed, but they survived the remaining stunts without failure. Number 3. Environmental fines for tire smoke totaled $68,000. Those spectacular burnout scenes that defined the Fast franchise came with a hidden cost nobody anticipated. Florida environmental regulations strictly limited particulate emissions, and burning rubber creates massive amounts of toxic smoke. Each burnout sequence released enough particulate matter to trigger air quality violations. The production obtained filming permits, but those permits didn't exempt them from Clean Air Act regulations. During the 3-month shoot, environmental inspectors cited the production 12 separate times for excessive tire smoke emissions. Each citation carried fines ranging from $3,000 to $8,000 depending on severity. The total environmental penalties reached $68,000. Here's the absurd part. The production had to submit detailed smoke dispersion plans before filming each burnout, showing wind direction and proximity to residential areas. But directors wanted dramatic smoke clouds that cameras could capture, which meant burning extra rubber beyond what was technically necessary. The fines became an accepted cost of creating iconic imagery. Some sequences were filmed multiple times just to get perfect smoke effects, generating additional citations. The production also faced lawsuits from 3 nearby businesses claiming the tire smoke triggered asthma attacks in employees. Those settlements cost another $45,000. The total cost of tire smoke exceeded $113,000 before a single frame reached theaters. Number 2. The dashboard gauges were completely non-functional props that caused continuity errors. Movie cars need to look fast, and gauges play a huge role in creating that illusion. The production removed the Yenko's original dashboard and installed a custom gauge cluster with oversized tachometers, boost egg gauges, nitrous pressure monitors, and oil temperature displays. These gauges looked incredibly impressive on camera with their white faces and orange needles, but none of them actually worked. They were purely decorative props with needles fixed in dramatic positions. The tachometer was stuck at 7,000 RPM, regardless of actual engine speed. The boost gauge showed 15 pounds of pressure even though the naturally aspirated engine had no turbocharger. The nitrous gauge displayed full bottles constantly, even after the system had been purged multiple times. This created massive continuity problems during editing. In one sequence, the nitrous gauge shows full in one shot, then jumps to empty in the next shot, then back to full when the camera angle changes. The tachometer reads differently depending on which Camaro was used for that particular take. Script supervisors tried tracking gauge positions between shots, but gave up after the first week. The fake gauges cost $6,800 to fabricate, and they created editing headaches that required digital fixes costing another $12,000 in post-production to digitally correct the worst continuity errors. Number 1. The Hero car sold for $400,000 and is now worth over $1 million. After filming Wrapped, the production sold the surviving Hero Camaro at a studio auction in 2003. It brought an impressive $57,000, which seemed like a fortune for a beat-up movie car. The buyer was a private collector who recognized the vehicle's potential significance. He was right. Over the next 2 decades, the Fast and Furious franchise became a global phenomenon worth over $6 billion. That orange Camaro became one of the most recognizable cars in cinema history. In 2015, the car sold privately for $245,000. By 2020, its value had climbed to $400,000. Today, insurance appraisers estimate the Hero Yenko's value exceeds $1 million. Here's the insane part. The production spent approximately $60,000 building that specific car from a $12,000 donor Camaro. The return on investment is over 1,600%. Paul Walker's tragic death in 2013 dramatically increased interest in all Fast franchise vehicles. The fake Yenko that fooled millions is now worth more than genuine 1969 Yenko supercars, which top out around $700,000. Sometimes the counterfeit becomes more valuable than the original. The Yenko Camaro from Too Fast, Too Furious was never a real Yenko supercar. It was a Hollywood fabrication that cost a fortune, broke constantly, and nearly killed crew members. But this orange imposter became more legendary than authentic Yenkos ever were. Sometimes the biggest lies create the most valuable truths.